Hello and welcome back to the Gluten-Free Guru channel. My name is Tanya and today I'm going to show you how to make sushi on a budget. So for this recipe we are going to make spicy mayo, and it's just sriracha and mayo. We're going to use light mayo. For the rolls we're going to have avocado, cucumber, cream cheese, imitation crab. Just make sure you look for gluten-free imitation crab. You want to get nori sheets. You can usually find them at pretty much any grocery store, especially the ones that have the little sushi bar section. We are also going to use smoked salmon and sweet potato. And we're going to tempura batter our sweet potato just to kind of get it more of that gluten-free but still authentic kind of sushi flavor. So for that you just need gluten-free flour and cornstarch as well as water. And then to make homemade sticky rice, you don't need to buy sushi rice. You can always just use regular rice with a bit of rice vinegar and sugar, and just add a little extra water to what is recommended on the back of the package. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is the rice, because it will take the longest and you definitely want it to cool down before you start to manipulate it onto the sheets. So we're going to take our 2 cups of water plus 2 tablespoons and our 1 cup of rice, and we're going to put it into 2 cups plus 2 tablespoons of water, and we're going to add it in before it boils, just because they say it's better to let it soak to make it more stickier. So that's what we're going to do. And then we're also going to add about 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar, and probably about just a teaspoon of sugar just to offset that bitterness and get that sushi rice flavor. Stir that around, turn it on high, and once it starts bubbling, lower it just so that it simmers until all the water is absorbed. So next we're going to make our tempura batter, so go ahead and grab yourself a bowl, and we're going to do equal parts of gluten-free flour and cornstarch, so a half a cup each. Okay, now we're going to add cold water to it. Alright, so what we did was we slowly added cold water to it and kept mixing it until it's about this kind of consistency. Just watery enough that you can coat the whole sweet potato, but also sticky enough that it'll hold the coating in place. So our last bit that we're going to add is just salt to season it. Make sure all the lumps are gone. Okay, set that aside. Now we are going to peel and chop up our sweet potato. So you'll want to cut it to be 3 inches in length. And then from there, we're going to cut it into thin rectangles. Careful not to cut yourself. So normally one sweet potato is kind of a lot for sushi, but you can always turn them into sweet potato fries and have them on the side as well. Okay, so get a large pan ready with some vegetable oil. You want enough to coat the bottom of the pan. So, and then we're also going to add some sesame seed oil for flavor. Just about maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons. Okay, now we're going to turn on the heat. I'm going to set it to fairly high, and we're going to wait until that's hot. And a good way to test is if you just put a little bit of batter into the oil, and if it starts sizzling, you know it's ready. In the meantime, you can get a plate ready with some paper towel to absorb some of the extra oil. All right, so let's have a check of the oil. Oh yeah, it's already splattering. This is a great method to make tempura flakes if you didn't want to batter your sweet potato and instead just add crunchy bits. This is how it's done. Like abstract art. All right, so what I'm actually gonna do is grab a fork, mix a couple of sweet potatoes at a time in there. Hold them out and place them. I'm gonna lower the temperature just a bit so it doesn't splatter me. Careful when flipping them that you don't splash yourself. Just make sure to turn them regularly so that way they don't burn. And a good way to test if they're done, because they might not turn super brown, is to just kind of like squish into one and see if the inside potato part is soft. That's when you know it's ready to come off. So at this point our rice is done, so what we're going to do is take the lid off and fluff it with a fork. Sticky. And we'll just set that aside until we're ready off the burner so that way it can cool. Alright, so our first batch of them are ready. So we'll take them off. Alright, so we're going to move everything over to one side again and add the next batch. Alright, now to make the tempura flakes, I'm just going to use the excess batter that we have after making our sweet potato, and I'm going to drizzle it in. Just like that. Oh, that was a big glub. You want to try and get it as fine as possible. Wiggling it around. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can always just break them apart afterwards. And we're just going to let them go until they start to get brown, and then we will strain them out. Alright, now that they're starting to brown, we can strain them out. I'm going to use just a regular noodle strainer. Again, be careful not to burn yourself. Use this, get all of it out. And we'll just let that cool on the rack. In the meantime, you can get some of the other vegetables ready, namely the cucumber and the avocado. So you can either keep the skin on and wash it, or you can peel it, which is how I prefer it. Okay, so this one we're going to cut into about 4 inches. And then do the same thing as we did with the sweet potato, cut them into small rectangles. Next, we're going to cut up our avocado. So I usually just cut it in half. Take out the centerpiece. And if it's ripe enough, you can just peel it back. Alternatively, you can cut it off. Here's one. Here's two. I'm gonna rinse my hands. And we are also gonna finely cut this up. All right, so now that we have all the parts separated and ready to go, got your notice sheets, make sure you have your ice water to help get the sticky rice off your fingers. You should have cooler rice than we have. It's a little hot, so I'm going to be using a fork to put it on. We have our imitation crab and smoked salmon opened, ready to go. We have our Philadelphia cream cheese open and ready to go, and our veggies, as well as our sauce. If you want to add any sauce inside of it, I highly recommend. And make sure you have a sushi mat. If you don't, you can always use some kind of like wax paper, or even saran wrap will probably work. It's just really to help you get a good tight roll on the maki rolls. So let's go ahead and get started. careful not to rip your seaweed sheets. And you'll notice that there is a shiny side and a more rippled side. You want the rippled side to be facing up. Next, we're gonna add our sushi rice or our sticky rice. That looks pretty good for a start. Dip your hands in the ice water and spread it out. You don't have to spread it down too much, but you want to make sure you get as close to the edges as possible on the horizontal side. But on the vertical side, you want to give yourself about ½ an inch just to make sure you can roll it and stick it in place. Looks like we could use a little bit more rice on the bottom here. We will use imitation crab. I'm just going to split them in half to fill up the whole sheet like that. Add some cucumber, maybe one more, some avocado because everyone likes avocado. Make it a little bit spicy. A strip of sriracha and a strip of mayo. Ooh, that just came out there. All right, to roll it up, make sure you wet the edges that don't have the rice thoroughly. Do it to both sides. Now, roll it over. I usually use my ring finger to tuck it in place a bit better. Keep it as tight as you can. It's going to be hard with the edges sometimes. Roll it up. And now I just use this sheet to really smoosh it in place. That is the technical term. And there is your first maki roll ready to be cut. Don't cut it on the mat because you will cut through the mat. So put it on a cutting board and make sure you have a really, really sharp knife. All right, so now that you have a sharp knife, go ahead and cut them. Usually you cut them in the middle, fold it in half, and then cut 2 more times. So let's go ahead and try that. 1, 2, and 3. All right, and there you go. There's your first roll of 6 pieces. All right, so for our next roll, I'm going to use the smoked salmon. Smoked salmon tends to be a bit salty, so you don't want to add too much because it will overpower a lot of the other flavors. And we're going to add our tempura sweet potato to it. And we're going to do small bits of cream cheese. And let's add a bit more sriracha because we are sriracha fans in this house. Add some water to the edges like before. Roll it up super tight. Smoosh it into place. And then next one ready to be cut. Next, we're gonna make a spicy, crunchy crab roll. Put in our cucumber. Let's just add some more avocado. And we're gonna add tempura flakes. Some of them are a little chunky, so just break them apart. They should crumple up pretty easily. Yep. And then spicy mayo again. You can always substitute spicy mayo with something else, like if you wanted to add some soy sauce in it. And these ones are beautiful. Thank you for watching this week's episode of the Gluten Free Guru channel. If you like watching how to make sushi, be sure to hit the like button. And if you want to see more, don't forget to hit subscribe. Thank you. Bon appetit, everyone. Very good. Delicious. Thank you for watching this week's episode of the Gluten Free Guru. If you like learning how to make sushi, be sure to hit the like button. And if you want to see more, don't forget to hit subscribe. I stumbled a bit. Okay, let's try it again. Oh my god. The worst. I'm gonna do this over the sink.